What's up, DJs and music heads? Welcome to Behind the Beats with your girl, DJ Echo Vibez. And to help me take a deep dive to this important topic is the one and only co-host, DJ Suzzy. Today, we're talking about a real struggle, dealing with bad bosses and nightmare clients. From shady contracts to last-minute demands, we've seen it all. And we've got the tips to help you stay professional and in control. Don't let the drama kill your vibe. Hit that like, subscribe, and let's get into it.
Welcome back to Behind the Beats. You know, being a DJ, it sounds super glamorous, right?
Spinning tracks, controlling the vibe, getting the crowd going.
Exactly. But today, we're going deep into a side of DJing that doesn't always get the spotlight. The wild and sometimes frustrating world of dealing with clients, bosses, and requests that make you wonder, did they really just ask for that?
Yeah. You know every DJ has stories, right?
Absolutely. And you shared some of your own with us, so we've got some real doozies to unpack, some advice that'll hopefully save you some headaches, and maybe we'll all have a good laugh at some of the absurdity along the way. Because let's be honest, sometimes it's just too wild not to laugh.
Definitely. Because behind the music, there's a whole other set of skills you need as a DJ, like managing expectations, personalities, and, those moments that just throw you for a loop.
Oh, for sure. And speaking of loop-throwing moments, let's kick things off with a story from the We Create the Vibes podcast. DJ Reese was talking about having to cancel not one, but 2 gigs in a single month because of, wait for it, difficult clients.
That's rough. Double whammy.
Right. And one of those stories was about a wedding client back in 2022, not that long ago, who decided to skip the whole email thing and instead mailed him the itinerary. But here's the kicker. Handwritten on composition notebook paper.
No way, Griff.
And the deposit even came back with it. So DJ Reese's big takeaway from that experience: set your standards high and know when to walk away if the hassle just isn't worth the potential paycheck. It makes you wonder, though, where do you draw the line? Like, what level of, let's say, unprofessionalism is just part of the gig, and when do you call it quits?
This story really hits on something important for anyone who's freelancing or in a creative field. Recognizing those early warning signs. It wasn't just about the handwritten itinerary, right? It's probably a sign that this client might not be the most organized, maybe doesn't respect professional boundaries, and could end up being a pain to work with throughout the whole process. So paying attention to those early red flags, it's not about being rigid. It's about protecting yourself from potential headaches and making sure the whole event goes smoothly for everyone, including you.
Totally. It's like that first interaction gives you a preview of what working with them will be like. Now, let's shift gears to a topic I'm sure we can all relate to. Dealing with, shall we say, overly enthusiastic guests. The kind who've maybe had a little too much to drink.
Yeah, we've all been there.
Right. And the DJ Phil Harris YouTube channel tackles this with some great humor and surprisingly practical advice. Song requests are a big one, obviously. He had these hilarious categories for the different types of requesters. The nags who just won't give up, the bribers who wave cash, and sometimes other things to get their song played. And then you've got the truly oblivious drunks with requests that are, well, let's just say creatively abstract.
The classics.
Right. And his advice for those way out there requests, just enthusiastically agree to play it soon and then never actually play it. It's classic customer service deflection, but hey, it works.
Oh, it definitely works. Especially when you're dealing with someone who's had a bit too much. Getting into a debate about their musical taste or whether their request is appropriate usually isn't going to go anywhere. So that little bit of enthusiastic agreement, followed by strategically not playing the song, it's a brilliant way to de-escalate without directly saying no and potentially causing a scene.
Absolutely. And for those persistent nags, DJ Phil Harris had a bit of a mischievous suggestion. Play their requested song, but at the most inconvenient time possible, like during dinner at a wedding. It's a bit cheeky, but it kind of satisfies the request without disrupting the dance floor later on. Then you've got the bribers, and that's apparently a real judgment call. You gotta weigh how truly awful the requested song is against how tempting that cash offer might be. I can only imagine some of the requests where no amount of money would make you want to play it. What do you think? How do you strike that balance?
Yeah, it's a tough one because it touches on the financial side of things, sure, but also the DJ's artistic integrity and the overall vibe they're trying to create. Like, a quick cash grab might be appealing in the moment, but if you play a song that just kills the energy or clashes with the whole feel of the event, it could backfire in the long run. It could hurt future bookings or even your reputation. So it's about weighing that immediate gain against the potential long-term cost to your brand and the success of the event itself.
That's a great point. Now, speaking of ending the night on a high note, let's talk about the dreaded one more song chant. Every event DJ has faced it.
Yeah, it's a classic.
And apparently there's a clever way to handle it without making a big scene. DJ Phil Harris suggests subtly signaling the end of the night. Like halfway through the last scheduled song, you start turning off the disco lights, flip on the main house lights, and while you're doing that, you visibly start packing up your gear. It's a pretty clear visual cue that the party's winding down.
That's a smart, non-confrontational way to manage expectations. Even if someone's had a few too many, they're going to notice those visual signals, and it avoids those awkward, drawn-out negotiations or just abruptly cutting the music. So for listeners out there, thinking about those subtle cues can be way more effective than making a direct announcement, which might just get met with resistance.
Absolutely. And let's not forget about those, shall we say, overly friendly guests who think the DJ booth is party central. You know, they want to hang out, maybe even try to play with the equipment.
Yeah, those. And
the advice there is a firm but polite no. You got to protect your gear and avoid any awkward situations. And when it comes to actual abusive behavior, sometimes the best approach is to just disengage, ignore it if you can. But if things escalate or you feel unsafe or your equipment is at risk, then it's time to bring in security or venue management. And in some really extreme cases, you might even have to stop the music and make an announcement about respecting the equipment. It's crazy how much of this job is about managing people, not just the music, right?
It's true. You're often not just providing the entertainment. You're also kind of responsible for keeping things running smoothly and making sure everyone's safe, including yourself and your gear. Knowing how to set those boundaries firmly but politely is so important. And being able to recognize when the situation is beyond your control and you need to get help from security or staff is equally important for your own well-being and for the whole event to go off without a hitch.
It's a whole other skill set on top of the music. And let's be real, it's not just the guests who can be challenging. Sometimes it's the venue managers or promoters. Your sources mention issues like micromanaging your set, being shady with payment, just general unprofessional behavior. The biggest piece of advice: get everything in writing up front. Your fee, ideally with a deposit before the gig, any technical requirements you have, and what kind of music they're expecting. Email agreements, even for those last-minute gigs, are a lifesaver because it protects you if anything goes sideways. How crucial do you think that documentation is?
It's absolutely essential. I mean, if you don't have a clear written agreement, you're opening yourself up to all sorts of problems. It could be disagreements about what you're supposed to play, what equipment you need, or even disputes about payment after the event. So for anyone listening, having that documentation isn't about being distrustful. It's about setting those clear expectations from the get-go and having something to refer back to if any issues pop up. It makes the whole interaction more professional.
Totally. And sometimes if a venue manager is being difficult, it might not even be personal. It could be that the venue itself is struggling financially, or maybe they just booked you for an event that isn't the right fit for your style or their usual crowd. In those cases, sometimes the best move is to just finish your set professionally and move on. You know, recognize when a situation isn't going to get better and focus your energy on future gigs that are a better match. You don't have to burn bridges,
Definitely.
right?
Not every gig is going to be perfect. And sometimes the problems you run into are just a symptom of bigger issues with the venue or the event itself. So learning to recognize those situations and not taking it personally is a huge skill. You fulfill your commitment professionally, and that way you keep your reputation intact and can move on to better opportunities.
Absolutely. Now, one of your sources got really specific with 10 strategies for dealing with difficult customers and clients. And honestly, I think this applies to so many professions beyond just DJing. It all starts with crystal clear expectations up front. That means a detailed contract that covers everything: the kind of playlist they want, deadlines, fees for any last-minute changes, the whole 9 yards. Then there's staying calm and professional, even when your client is being the opposite. Learning to say no diplomatically, documenting all your key communications, and even strategically using humor to diffuse tense situations. Which of those tips really jump out at you?
I mean, setting those clear expectations from the start is huge. So many conflicts happen because of misunderstandings about what your service includes, your fees, what the client can realistically expect. A detailed contract sets the foundation for a smooth working relationship. And being able to stay calm and professional, even when someone's being unreasonable, that's a superpower. It stops things from escalating and lets you handle the situation rationally.
It's not always easy, right? Sometimes you really got to hold back. But there is also some great advice about knowing when to stand your ground, especially when it comes to your professional boundaries or your artistic vision. You got to protect those. And the source also emphasized offering solutions, not just excuses when something goes wrong. And something we all need to hear sometimes: don't take criticism personally. It might not even be about you. It could be about them and their own stuff. And get this, the source also talked about how charging what you're worth often attracts more respectful clients who value your expertise. It makes sense, right?
It does.
And then finally, knowing when to walk away from a toxic or unprofitable client relationship, that's crucial for self-preservation. Have you seen that be a make or break thing?
Absolutely. Holding on to a client that's always stressing you out, underpaying you, or disrespecting your boundaries, that can do real damage in the long run. Not just to your bank account, but to your mental and emotional health too. So, being able to spot those red flags and having the confidence to politely end those relationships, that frees you up to find better, more rewarding opportunities. It shows professional maturity and self-respect.
Couldn't agree more. There was also some really insightful advice about turning those negative experiences into lessons. Even when you've had a rough client interaction or a bad gig, taking time to reflect on what went wrong and how you could handle things differently in the future. It's like, yeah, it sucked, but how can we grow from this?
That's a really proactive and mature approach. Instead of just getting stuck in the negativity, you're using those tough experiences to get better. You refine your process, strengthen your boundaries, and ultimately, you become more resilient and successful in the long run. It's all about continuous improvement.
Exactly. And finally, we got to talk about those bad boss situations. Now, a lot of DJs work independently, but if you've got a residency at a venue or work for a promotion company, these issues can definitely come up. And the advice here was pretty similar to dealing with difficult clients. Document everything, especially if there's any disrespect, harassment, or unfair treatment. Building a professional network outside of that toxic workplace is also key. It opens up new opportunities and helps you rely less on that bad boss. And setting firm boundaries around your time and availability is crucial for your mental well-being. Do you see a lot of overlap between dealing with those bad clients and bad bosses?
Oh, absolutely. In both cases, clear communication, setting boundaries, and documenting your interactions are so important for protecting yourself. But with a boss, the power dynamic can be trickier, right? So having that external network and other options, that's even more important. It gives you leverage and that feeling of not being trapped in a bad situation.
For sure. And there were some other great tips for navigating a bad boss situation. Focusing on getting better at your craft so you're more confident, and criticism doesn't sting as much. Finding allies in the workplace who can support you. And even keeping a side hustle going, just in case you need an escape route or some financial backup. Staying professional even when your boss isn't, using humor carefully to lighten the mood, and get this, channeling that frustration into your music. It sounds like in those situations, holding on to your sense of self and your professionalism is everything.
You nailed it. When you're dealing with a difficult boss, you got to focus on what you can control, your skills, your behavior, and finding opportunities outside of that environment. Finding healthy ways to deal with the stress and keeping your passion alive, that's huge for your well-being and your career in the long run. And knowing when a situation is truly toxic and it's time to explore other options, that's a sign of strength and self-awareness.
So, as we've heard, being a DJ isn't just about rocking the party. It's about navigating a whole world of personalities, setting clear boundaries, and staying professional even when things get tough. From crazy requests to handling those party animals and dealing with tricky management or bosses, it's a constant balancing act that goes way beyond the music itself.
Absolutely. And I think the biggest takeaway here is that clear communication and setting expectations right from the start, that's key in any of these situations. Whether it's with a client, the venue manager, or a boss, having those open conversations and putting agreements in writing can prevent so many headaches down the road. And that ability to say no, politely but firmly, that's a must-have skill for any DJ.
And it's a good reminder that your well-being and your professional integrity are non-negotiable. Sometimes walking away from a problematic client, a difficult venue, or even a toxic boss is the best thing you can do for yourself and your career in the long run.
It's true. We hope this deep dive into the real-world side of DJing has given you some things to think about, maybe even some aha moments. It's clear that being a successful DJ takes more than just music skills. It takes people skills, too.
Absolutely. So what about you? Have you ever been in a situation like this, whether as a DJ or in any other job where you deal with clients or bosses? We'd love to hear your stories. What boundaries do you think are the most important to set when you're working directly with clients? It's a topic that impacts so many of us, so let's keep the conversation going. Thanks for diving deep with us.